It's interesting, Benny, isn't it? Since Jim Ratcliffe has been in, not that long, I think a lot of United fans, certainly when the window was open, of course, over Christmas, thought that him turning up at the club would mean lots of new names, players coming in. Obviously, that didn't happen.
Probably a good thing.
What he has, probably a good thing, but what he has done, he's already brought in Omar Barada from Man City. He's going to be the CEO. Dan Ashworth has been linked heavily to the club now, the sporting director. He's only been at Newcastle, I think, since 2022, so not long. What does that tell you about what Jim Ratcliffe has highlighted as being major problems at Manchester United? It's not just on the pitch, right?
Yeah,
he understands just how important that backroom is.
Yeah, he's got to get the people right that are going to bring the players in. You look at Dan Ashworth, his track record has been phenomenal. Brighton, what he did. Obviously, he was involved in the England setup as well, wasn't he? Going to Newcastle, I know he's not been there that long, but he's almost gone in there and their hands are almost tied because of the whole FFP thing. So even though they're worth, trillions of pounds...
I think it's something like 700 billion.
Can't do anything with it because they're not generating enough money to be able to go out and spend on players. Now, him going to somewhere like Manchester United, though, now you're starting to go, all right, here we go. Because when it comes to revenue, not a problem for Manchester United, biggest club in the world, will always generate loads of money. So there will always be money to spend. And if Jim Ratcliffe's going to put his hand in his pocket, but not only that, you've got somebody now who can identify it. There's going to be a plan there, isn't there, in terms of we're not going to go out and buy the best players that we feel just by name. We're going to look at absolutely everything. Character, how they integrate in this Manchester United squad. Are they good enough on the pitch? Like, what are their characteristics? There's going to be so many different avenues, which Dan Ashworth is kind of very, very good at. If you look at some of the players he's brought in, like over his tenure of this role, has been spectacular. I mean, Brighton, they've benefited loads, some of the signings and the way they've sold these players on. But for Manchester United, I think the days of a manager just going, I want him, them days are done. It doesn't always work because sometimes you're blinded by, you only see that one player, whereas Dan Ashworth might go in and go to Ten Hag. Ten Hag might say, I want this player. Dan Ashworth will go, I get you want that player, but look at these 4 or 5 other options that are potentially as good as him, but better in certain areas.
What about buying certain players for certain clubs? So we've seen it at Brighton, right? Their scouting network has been absolutely incredible. Yeah. But quite a lot of the big hitters, they've been the exception, but quite a lot of the big names that, for argument's sake, have gone to Chelsea haven't worked. Yeah. And so what does that tell you about the players that they've identified at Brighton as being right for that role, but they can't necessarily do it or fit in at other clubs?
Well, sometimes it depends on the environment. So you look, for instance, at someone like a Caicedo or a Cucurella. When they're at a stable environment like a Brighton, and it's working for them, they're playing really well. At the minute, Chelsea are a little bit of a basket case of a club. So it's an unsettling environment. Don't know what they're doing. Don't know what position they're trying to play, what kind of football they're trying to play at Chelsea. So he's probably gone in there and they're a little bit like, ooh, what's going on here? Whereas you look at someone like Alexis McAllister, who goes into a stable environment at Liverpool, it's the same player. He was brilliant at Brighton. He's gone to Liverpool. He's still very good because the environment's better for him. So I think sometimes you can't always aim that at the players of where, you have to look at where the player have gone. But as I said, for Manchester United, if they can have, if they can get Dan Ashworth and then he can obviously do the scouting network and bring players to United, that's a positive.
How worried would you be if you're Newcastle? Because it wasn't that long ago, right? They got top 4. They qualified for the Champions League. They won their first game. Was it PSG?
They won the second game because they drew with AC the first game.
And then they smashed PSG. Right? All of a sudden, you've got Newcastle fans, rightly so, thinking, we're going to go on to bigger and better things. We might win the Premier League this season. If not, it'll be next season. Yeah. Now, all of a sudden, you look where they are in the league, their form's dipped a bit. It's almost like reality has hit home.
Yeah, but they're seventh now. And they're equal in points with West Ham. Brighton are 1 point behind them. Chelsea are 2 points behind them.
Which is where sort of you think Newcastle should be if you asked someone maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But if you would have asked them after they got top 4 and qualified for the Champions League, that would have been a totally different answer. How now the dust has had a chance to settle, how difficult do you think it's going to be for Newcastle to try and be a part of that the so-called big 6 clubs, not top 6, the big 6. So I'm talking about the Arsenal, of course, the Spurs as well, and the Man United and so on.
It's going to be difficult because, again, they've got all the wealth in the world, but when you can't spend it, and then they're talking about having to sell better players, they're better players to generate money to buy other players, you almost feel, well, how are they ever going to move forward? Do you know what I mean? If they're having to sell Isak to bring someone else in, it's like, well, they're not going to be as good as Isak.
No.
Do you know what I mean? So it's going to be difficult, but what they've got to do is they've just got to keep doing what Eddie Howe has been doing, and he did a fantastic job last season. Have to build a squad that can compete with these guys. But it's like when you're trying to evolve as a football club, you have to keep updating your resume in terms of bringing in better players, bringing in players all the time. If you can't do that, you can't compete with the clubs that you're up against. You're always going to struggle. So there's no point having the 700 billion.
I was going to say, it's almost irrelevant having X amount of wealth, right?
If you can't spend it.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Like, how can you have that much money and you've got to be selling like some of your better players? Because they're talking about Gomeres could be sacrificed, Isak could be sacrificed, Botman could be. I mean, if you want to get in the aspirations of getting the Champions League every single season, you've got to keep these three players. They're your three best players.
So with that in mind, with financial fair play, now we've seen, of course, the penalties that happen if you overspend, you get points deducted, etc. We don't know what's going to happen to Man City. But does that mean it's now going to be, as we move on, it's going to be even more difficult for clubs knocking on the door to open that door?
Potentially, it depends what... I mean, the big guys, again, Cities and Manchester United, these guys, Arsenal's, even Chelsea to a point, because they've been doing it for so long and have been in the Champions League, won it a couple of times, their revenue for what their club makes is huge. Big club is massive.
Yeah.
But it's going to be incredibly hard for a club like Newcastle to get in there and crack it and stay in there. I think you get clubs that will have a very good season and maybe potentially finish in the Champions League and then have 1 year of it.
Yeah.
But to stay there year upon year upon
year. Like a Villa, like a Newcastle, maybe like a Brighton.
That's going to be difficult. That's going to be really difficult.
To sustain it.
Yeah. Because you've got to find a way. And FFP, some people might like it, some people might hate it. But that's going to be the problem. Okay,
so we'll take calls from Newcastle fans, 03717223334 on all of that. Just a quick word about Man United, going back to them. As you as an Arsenal fan, when you see that the backroom team that he's building, I mentioned the CEO from City, Omar Barada, Dan Ashworth has been heavily linked to the club, uses no smoke without fire. So I expect him to join at some stage. As an Arsenal fan, do you look at that and think, okay, they're getting their ducks in a row in the right place now?
Of course, because you want Manchester United, you want other clubs in and around you to be chaos. You don't want all of a sudden Jim Ratcliffe coming in and now making big decisions off the pitch, because you start thinking, okay, he's identified what's going on here. I expect Manchester United, like Man United, are not going to be in this rut forever, are they? At some point, they are going to come again.
According to reports, Man United are planning to make a formal approach for Newcastle sporting director Dan Ashworth, who is believed to be open to the switch to Old Trafford. Have a listen to him speaking in his first interview in Newcastle about what he wanted to achieve.
I think probably my role is a bit project-driven, really. It's to go in. I was first one at West Bromwich Albion to go in and do the job, and the chairman had said wasn't really sure how he wanted it to look, but try and build some infrastructure around recruitment, academy, medical, first team. Similar at the FA, because that was St George's Park. That was a new build, new training ground, if you like. And then Brighton, again, first technical director there, and they wanted to try and connect some of the strands across the club. So I think any new project is something that really excites me, really inspires me to certainly be there towards the beginning of the project as well. And obviously with new owners and with Eddie coming in and some of the aspirations around some of the things we want to try and drive through with women's academy, training ground, the first team as well, it was something that was really attractive.
We can take calls on all the above, 03717223334. That was Dan Ashworth speaking. Let's hear from you, the football fan. Graham's first up. He's a Newcastle fan. Hello, Graham.
Hello, lads. You all right?
Happy Valentine's Day to you.
And to you.
Did you get anything?
I believe I've got a card, and I believe we're going to go for the old Marks and Spencer special.
Oh, that'd be nice. Are you cooking, or is Mrs. Graham doing it?
Oh, Mrs. Graham will be cooking, I would imagine.
Okay. Have you bought her anything?
I must admit I haven't, only purely because I've been suffering from a really bad back and legs, and I can hardly walk at the moment. But
okay. When did you get the injury?
Probably about 3 weeks ago, but the focus is for us to get right by next Wednesday, because we're off to South Africa, so I need to get myself sorted.
Very nice. Well, good luck with that.
So that's not a bad present, is it?
It's not a bad present.
For our 30th win anniversary.
Okay. What would you like to say, Graham?
A few things, really. First of all, from Dan Ashworth's point of view, I would just like him to come out and see what he wants to do, make a comment of some sort. If he wants to go, then as a Newcastle fan, I've always believed no player, no manager, no sporting director is bigger than the club, so he can just go. However, if he does go, I think he needs to go on a bit more gardening leave and we need a big compensation for him, because it doesn't seem very fair that he can just go in and affect Man U's summer window with all the stuff and preparation that we've done so far. So I think about garden leave, and he can...
What about a Newcastle approach a club to bring a player in during the window?
You what?
What about a Newcastle approach another club to bring a player in? Is that okay? Or should they go on gardening leave?
Well, That's just called player trading, isn't it?
No, but it's exactly the same, right? Move from one club to another. Why should Dan Ashworth go on gardening leave?
Because he is his job is strategic, so therefore he'll have lots of scouting reports, etc., that potentially Newcastle are going to go for in the summer, and therefore that disrupts our plans.
Right. Okay. But when you approach Real Sociedad for Isak, right? They could say exactly the same. It's a bit unfair. You take one of our top players. You should go on gardening leave.
No, it's not, because that's ridiculous.
No, my point is, it's exactly the same. You're taking someone very important from a club.
Well, so I think it's more strategic. However, I would also like to say, from a Man United point of view, because I'm actually quite enjoying the ATM cash machine book at the moment, that I think Man United have still got a lot of problems in terms of you've got lots of overpaid players to clear out, i.e. Mr. Sancho and $300,000 a week. So I don't think Man United's that flush with cash at the moment. And going forward, I think once we get a few of our injuries back, Willock, Barnes, I think our end of the season we may still get into Europe and maybe the FA Cup.
Nice.
Okay, thanks for that, Grant. We'll go to Alan in just a quick second. This email's coming. He says, Darren, this is you, Darren, broke my wrist on Valentine's Day when he kicked a ball at me in Hitchinbrook School by the rugby pavilion. I think it was an accident. Does that mean anything to you?
No. No, we've not got another Andrew Howe situation where I told them to pull the wrong brake.
Right. There's no name on this. 03717 223344. Phone up, tell us a story about how Benty broke your wrist. In fact, if Darren Bent has broken any part of your body, phone up. Alan's up next. Hello, Alan.
Hi, are you okay, gents?
Oh, good. Has Darren Bent broken any part of you before?
Not really, no. He never caused us too many problems at Old Trafford as well.
Well, he did score in a game.
There's been a few there.
What have you got, or what did you get for Valentine's Day, Al?
Well, we're just having sort of a takeaway. I got the roses, the usual thing, so it's one for the guy to do, I think, that.
Okay. What did you get, Mrs. Allen?
Yeah, just like I say, just the roses. And
that's what you got. Okay, I thought that's what she got you. What did you get from her?
Just a card and the privilege of her company.
Oh,
that's lovely.
Okay, you should be grateful. Go on, Al. What would you like to say as a United fan?
Yeah, no, I'm just feeling positive about, obviously, the future. We know that this isn't going to be a quick fix, but I like what they're doing since they've come in. And, I'm a season ticket holder at United and get to a few away games as well. And just the general mood with the fans, we're feeling a lot better going forward than we were a few months ago.
Alan, let me ask you a question. Do you feel more relaxed and more calm the fact that the transfer policy may potentially be taken out of Erik ten Hag's hands and put in Dan Ashworth's?
Totally, Darren, totally. I think modern football is done that way more now, where it's more of a consultation on how you buy players and, like you say, looking at quite a few options rather than just one. And, United have spent a lot of money, wasted a lot of money in the wrong places when it comes to players, and that still, needs rooting out. But I'm confident that if we get a structure in place, that over time, we'll be more modern with our approach.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I think thanks, Alfie. I think a lot of United fans, if not all of them, be very happy.
Of course, I think Ten Hag has made some good signings, but when you look at some of the money he spent on other players, maybe he was blinded by some of these players because he knew them from before.
talkSPORT Drive. Super opinionated sporting debate. Monday to Friday afternoon from 4 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.